So I've set it up to the best of my ability, hopefully, and let's see how it goes. Because, of course, I need to know where my questions are going to pop up and if anybody's actually here, which I believe there are about 12 or 13 people here. 18 people here, it would say. But until I get some questions, I don't know where to look for them. So please, welcome and ask your questions. And we've got the first one from Dave and Jane. Good evening. Good evening to you both as well. Now, I've got my laptop here as well. So hopefully I might be able to see some questions popping up there. Otherwise, I'm going to have to gaze in here. What can we see? Okay, I've just got the thumbs up from my better half to say I can be heard. But yes, all I need to do is figure out where I can see some questions. So just excuse me, talk amongst yourselves for a moment and please ask those questions. Ah dear. Right, if I click on there, is that going to do anything? No, that's not doing anything at all either. Right, so here is the problem, and I think if I press that one, no, still no questions anywhere. I can't even say has anybody sent one because I can't read them. Try that, try that. I have absolutely no idea how to get any questions visible to me. Yeah, this might have failed as soon as it started because I can't see anything. Right. Well, can you see any questions, Limbo?
There's comments but no questions.
Well, even the comments, I can't even see them. I've absolutely nothing to view. So where can I get those on my many systems? Apologies, everybody. This is the teething pains of doing such a thing. And it looks like we might as well just quit while we're ahead because I can't see anything. Oh, they've all appeared just now. Let's hope I can scroll. Oh, yes, I can scroll. Here we go now. Right. 6 and 7, I think I'm camera shy. It looks like I've got to peer in here to see these. Evening, oh, and then they fade away if I don't press on them quite immediately. That's very annoying. And they don't stay there very long, do they? Right, can you recommend a good wind meter at a reasonable price? Anything by Kestrel. They do make a lot of more economical units, not just the... oh, this is annoying, because if I'm not pressing on the screen, they're not popping up. Anything by Kestrel. How can I get these to appear and stay appearing? Right. I think this... yeah, they just keep disappearing on me. So we've got a Kestrel wind meter. Isn't technology wonderful? David and Jade. No, it's not. I hate it. Huh? I can't see anything anywhere. Is your phone showing them? Yeah. See if you can make my phone show the comments. Right. When's the HIC 19 video? Daryl, when I get a chance to make it. I've been very busy, it's been snowing and we've had deadline weeks, but we'll hopefully get those done at some point. I'm just a bit multitasking here, trying to find out where I can see my comments. Oh, right. So we've done that. We might have some chance here. Love it, Scout. Good evening. Good evening, Daryl. Let me just get rid of that. Hopefully this won't happen every time because I've got to get all these things sorted out. Can we see there being any new calibers if we already have ballistically coefficient calibers? Chris, 617. they'll keep inventing new calibers while people keep buying them thinking they do something fundamentally different, which is the fact they just don't. So, you know, I shot deer the other week with the 65-55 Swede. Did it do anything different to a 260 or a Creedmoor? No, not at all. Right, don't stop or pull the plug. This is brilliant. Thank you, Daryl. Obviously, you're enjoying my... well, I don't really get flustered because if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. No loss to me. I'm absolutely exhausted because I woke up silly early this morning, so I can go to bed early. 6.8 Winchester is the latest calibre, I think, Paul Smith. Well, Paul, great stuff. I look forward to seeing one. Bear in mind, I haven't had a 6.5 PRC yet. I think some of them, I've seen quite a lot of custom ones being made, but I haven't seen any anything advertised in actually realistic factory specification. Right, David and Jay, Chris, where do you stand on the use of thermal for stalking? I'm having a bit of a mental, ethical battle with it. Do I need to get with the times, or do you share my reservations? There'll always be a huge query over whether things are morally acceptable, or, you know, moving with the technology. Is this too newfangled? Is it too easy? Is it just shooting and not hunting? It's like the whole long-range hunting thing. Well, long-range and hunting seem to be quite different terms to me. But as for using thermal, well, I certainly won't be pursuing thermal for shooting anything. But in terms of spotting and scanning, this is the HIC 19 here, actually. This, to me, is what I would want to use if I was in some kind of serious deer control situation, either recreationally or financially speaking, because that, as a daylight unit, it's so small, handheld, it's just easy to use, and for what it weighs, which is probably about 400 or 500 grams, if that, it'll just slip in a pocket, won't be any kind of bother, and it will allow the situations where, especially in foliage and things like that, you need the tiniest free space for thermal imaging to pick up a target, which you could look at for 5 minutes with binoculars and never even see it. So it's an indicator that something is there and due further investigation. You know, how many people have been stalking and will never know the fact that there were 20 deer around them. They never saw a single one of them because they weren't glassing correctly or enthusiastically enough. Whereas thermal, bang, it's straight, it's in front of you. But you've still got to hunt for it. So, I don't know, it's all down to your own personal choice. I think there are bigger things to worry about in the short, medium and long term to do with hunting than whether or not we use thermal, which currently has no problematic acceptance within the UK law. So yeah, let's maybe go with that. Right, PARD WA LRF or Wraith? I'm bored of that question, so I'm despicably, absolutely not answering it. I've answered it so many times. Thermal imager, which would you suggest? Now, I'd go with one of the Hicks, to be honest. I quite like them. The only thing I'd go to a pulsar for would be to use the Accolade because of the binocular capability. But otherwise, I really do like the Hick. I'm interested in trying some of the iRay ones as well. And I did like the Zeiss. What was that called now? Is it the DS335 or DSI 335, something like that? I did like that. But again, I'm a big ergonomics junkie. So for me, the ergonomics, handling capability, usability of it can often outrank, you know, is it the one that's going to see a human at 1,800 metres, not 1,400 metres? Well, I think there are bigger questions than just a sales number that they can quote to a sort of specific statistic. But yeah, I do like the Accolades. Part of the reason that I like all the more tubular designs is they're completely ambidextrous. Right, if you had the money, what rifle would you pick? Blaser R8 or Merkel Helix? I think I had this question the other week. It depends what for. If it is just for very fast-paced wild boar shooting, I might go for the Merkel. But for a quiet operation rifle, which is a very fundamentally accurate gun with a lot of caliber change capability, fast reload, but you know it's got slight compromise in terms of if it's a long action, your nose gets in the way of the bolt. But the Blaser overall is probably a nicer gun. And it's an easier gun to use quietly, whereas with the Helix, you have got to be quite, you know, rat-a-tat. You've got to close the bolt hard, you've got to open the bolt hard. you know, it's not like getting out of the car, going foxing at night, closing the car doors super quietly, then closing the bolt of the rifle super quietly. It ain't going to happen. But for that, yeah, right. I think you just answered Hick. What lens size? Go for the biggest one you can afford. You know, the Hicks are evolving quite rapidly, and of course I've had. If I just have a look here somewhere, bear in mind I can't touch guns on YouTube because if I touch guns on a live feed on YouTube, I believe I may well be shut down. So Neil told me. Now that is a Vulcan 35, and that is the 19, which is the is it called the Lynx? Yeah, the Lynx Pro, the 19. So look at the size difference on those, and that gives you an idea. Pop the cap off that one. I mean, that really is a handheld pocket-sized unit. And the 35 is bigger. It's better image quality. Quality is perhaps the wrong word. It is a slightly better image. It is easier to recognise and you know, pick up detail on it. But that is fundamentally a little bit quicker and faster because, you know, on a short neck strap, it's always there, either hand. And I really do like it. And I think it's, you know, the very, very good value for money. And the thing is, do you need to see everything at, you know, half a mile? If you're only going rabbiting or ratting or foxing in small fields and paddocks, you know, 200 metres can be a very long way. So how much do you need? Let's have a look and see if I can see some more questions here. Right. Can there be any more advances in the rifle design, or have we reached the limits? It's still a tube and a cartridge after all. Interesting question, 617. I mean, when you look at, say you look at a 100-year-old rifle, which people still want to buy, like a classic Mauser 98. The fundamentals of how it operates haven't changed, and I'll tell you this now. If you look at a modern Mauser rifle stock compared to a 98 from 100 years ago, the geometry is very, very similar. For the fundamental reason it still suits a human. Ergonomics will pick up. The human race is getting larger and taller. I was having this conversation today with somebody who's about 4 inches taller than me, and I said, have a look at this rifle, because I think this particular rifle, suits people with bigger hands, a bit taller. I'm 5'11". I'm probably maybe about average. Is that bigger than average? I think maybe 5'9", 5'10's average height. You go over to Holland or somewhere like that, they're all massive, and Germans are quite tall as well. So I mean, there's a whole thing about different cultures and nationalities tend to have slightly different trends in height, size, and things like that. Ergonomics might blend towards that. Change different shooting styles. I think US rifles tend to have much shorter length of pull comparatively against a European rifle. But in terms of fundamental design, if you look at a rifle from 20 years ago compared to one now, for example, a Seiko 75 or a Tikka 695, 595, something like that, versus a T3 or a Seiko 85 today, are they fundamentally any more accurate? No. Is the ammunition made in large quantities with the usual sacrifice of bulk quantity over the infinite capability of getting the finest quality you'll ever get with like a hand-loaded cartridge? That's a factor in it. The rifles, they're made probably more economically. They're probably a tiny little bit cheaper compared to, how they were before, inflation aside. Do they look a little bit cheaper? Do they feel a little bit cheaper? And of course, there's this big blend between using the latest materials and the fact that the latest materials are actually, it's a bulk factor to make, so it's a little bit cheaper sometimes making them. You injection mold a polymer stock, even an awful lot of money goes into the injection mold, but each stock as an individual unit is quite cheap, really. And then you come back to the geometry, the ergonomics of it. Have you designed it correctly? Have you not designed it correctly? Because you take something like a Boyd laminate stock. You program a CNC program. You carve that stock. If you make a mistake on something, you make a slight change to the program. The next one comes off is right. If you get that wrong in an injection molding, well, your die is your mold is pretty much junk. So unless there are some small fundamental changes that can be made, slightly for profile, but you can only really remove material, not put it back. So you see a lot of things and you think, did they make a really big mistake when they made this mould? Because this geometry is bad, this dimension is bad, this ergonomic effect from this stock is bad. So that's perhaps the advancement in modern rifles. It's all about making more of them for less money, because no one in America is trading in an old rifle to buy a new one. Well, some guys are, but they seem to generally have a culture of wanting to accumulate more, not at the expense of some of the older ones going. In the UK, it's a bit different to that. We tend not to accumulate more, partly for licensing and legal reasons. But there's the storage of it, there's the cost of it, and how many do we need? We've relatively few quarry species compared to the US, so it's the whole cultural differences. And of course, one of the biggest mistakes people made is that they look at things they see on the internet and think that this is the latest, greatest cartridge and caliber. And what they're not accounting for is that it comes from a country and a design agency where they've got a totally different hunting ethos, ethic. It's a complete cultural difference. For example, very small, high-speed bullets 20 years ago for varminting. Look at prairie dogs. Right, number one, they've no moderators. They're wearing ear defenders or they're wearing nothing. Number two, an extremely small, high-velocity bullet creates very little recoil, and on a dust bowl area, you will see that bullet land and you will see it splash with the less recoil. So that was a great reason for it. And also, we're talking the days before laser rangefinders. So again, you've a flatter trajectory. So those are all cultural factors, and when everybody starts chasing things like 204 Rugers over a 223 because it's the greatest cartridge from the US, well, the 17 Remington, something like that, is that because it particularly suits the US hunting style and requirement of that era? Is it as applicable here now? Perhaps less so. Well, probably less so in my opinion, but we all have opinions, don't we? There you go, 617. There's a long blabby reply for you. Right, let me have a little scan through some of these questions, and actually a bit of luck happens because my phone isn't going to sleep. Right, thinking is have you planned on your review on the Sauer 100 you have soon? Do you know, I've had that Sauer 100 quite a long time, and I've reviewed quite a lot of them, but only in written articles. I've got a bit of bonkers news today because I did a video the other week, no different to any other video I make, and if I'd have made 5,000 views on it, I'd have been quite happy. It was at the Seiko S20, and we stand here 3 weeks on, and I'm thinking, when I go to bed tonight, that video may well be on 250,000 hits. 250,000. That is twice the size of my biggest ever video of the past, which was about 130,000 on the Tikka T3 Tact, and it is called the Tact. I was told to change the name on it by Tikka themselves. So, and it did that in a year, and this one's done it in 3 weeks. And when you look at the YouTube factors, basically YouTube have promoted this video everywhere, and I cannot find a specific reason why. And you're left thinking, hang on, how does a video with 250,000 hits make less money than a video with 10,000 hits? And that's the situation I'm in. And you think there's just no logic to any of it. So part of the reason I don't make videos is, if the footage comes together well, and the opportunity's there, I will put the video out. But magazine writing, photography is so easy compared to making videos. And I do like making videos, and I like having the YouTube channel, and I like, my personal interaction, which is less dampened and moderated by editors and this, that, and the other. But it just comes down to it, and when the weather's terrible and everything else is terrible, and you're 3 inches deep in mud everywhere you walk, making films is very onerous. But we might do. The Sauer 100 is a great rifle in most of its iterations. I've tried quite a lot of them actually. I've tried 308s, I've tried 223s. In fact, I've only ever tried 308s and 223s, but I've used a lot of different ones. The Keeper is one of the finest rifles there is. Great bolt design, great bolt handle design, which makes the ergonomics of the bolt itself even better. I've used quite a few of the 308s. A couple of my friends have bought them actually on my recommendation. I hunted in Ireland with the 308 Sauer 100, which was the, what was it now? It was a Cerakoted version, which I actually dropped down a mountain and made an awful mess of. And do you know what? I picked it up afterwards, went to check zero with it, and it hadn't moved a millimetre. It's a bit scratched and battered, and the scope on top of it certainly looked a bit worse for wear. But, yeah, I was quite impressed with that, because you don't often get to do that to rifles. You certainly don't do it deliberately. But I think the people were more impressed that I'd got down the mountain without damaging myself and the rifle had a bit of a tumble. Right, have you had any issues with Par 007 behind you on the more high-end scopes? Right, yeah, Chris Lewis. I think the simple fact that the higher-end scopes, you've got more IR filtering on them. It's a fairly well-known factor that you don't necessarily put scopes like that in front of digital night vision like that. I haven't used it loads, to be honest. There are pros and cons to it. Personally, if I was going to use that on a foxing rifle, I would want to move the scope forward because it has got that ergonomic change, and you are forced to move your head back with it a bit. I prefer the 008 as a standalone foxing rifle. But for an air gun, which you might use in daylight, you might use target work, and then you might want to go ratting with, it's ideal. It really is ideal. And because you've got no zero shift issues or anything like that, and it clips on, clips off. I'd love to show you it, but if I touch it, YouTube might bin my video. Right, Chris Lewis again. Oh, hang on. Right, I found my Thermion XQ50. It gives a clearer image if I don't use the rubber eye cup. Thing with that is the rubber eye cup, it harnesses the heat that's coming off your eye and your face. So especially in cold conditions, and you hold your eye to that, okay, there's a little bleed hole in the side to let air circulate, but it's no different to the windscreen in your car when you're getting it in the morning. Just the thermal change causes condensation to form on the lens. So you will probably most likely find that without that rubber eye shield on it, because you're not getting that heating effect on the lens, you don't get the condensation effect, and that's all the heat that's coming off your eye and your face, your skin, everything. Just a simple fact of physics, that, and that's why you notice it with those on and not. Right. Chris Lewis again. Could you do a fitting video at some point? With regards to the modern adjustable stocks, chassis would really help, as I have monkey arm. Funnily enough, Dave Land, I was on the phone with Dave Land today, and he said he's got unusual monkey arms, because it was him I was talking to about this specific rifle. And I said to him, I said, this rifle feels on the bigger side, and it's quite good actually. I take something like a Sauer or a Mauser as kind of average, works right for me. Something like a Savage tends to be a bit small, often in the grip, length of pull. This was a CZ557, and it notably felt a bit bigger and beefier. And I said to Dave, and he said he's got monkey arms, and he said some people have either got a long forearm or a long upper arm, and he said he was once told when he was young, Dave's about what, 6'3", he said he was told he had monkey arms because he had long lower arms and upper arms. So I'll get him to you on that one. He'll talk to you, Chris, on that one. As for fitting, wow, you could that's just an endless question. It makes, I mean, I am not a gun fitter. I know what the principles are of fitting a gun to you, especially a shotgun to you. Would I ever do it? No, I wouldn't do it. But it's about, in generally similar physical position, having a gun, because to my mind, shotguns, you move from the waist and the hips, and generally this sort of upper section is in formal fixed position, so that the gun is pointing where you're looking. Now, compare that with rifle shooting, especially things like PRS, whatever. You could be in any position using all sorts of different rests. You could be prone, standing, kneeling, sitting. You could be going through a barricade. You could be on a hay bale. You could be poking it through a wire cage on a chicken run or something. So fitting in that respect is a huge factor. What would I put first? What would I put last? The thing I notice most on rifles is length of pull. I don't like super short rifles, and I don't like super long rifles. I want to go about 14 and 8, 14 and a quarter maximum. And again, am I just going to be shooting it prone, or do I have to make it more capable for various positions? Because as much as they all want to say this is an adjustable stock, we can do this, we can do that, we can do the other, some of them need tools to do it. Some of them don't have any kind of reciprocal measurement system to annotate where you've got things and where you've tested things and where you've tried things in your training, which people like to do. It's just an endless piece of string, that one, I think. An endless piece. And, I sometimes get the impression that shooting is about somehow having everything right for when you need it for this thing. And I don't think somehow people think maybe you should go shooting and try all these things in a safe environment, in a safe way, to find what works for you. Because there'll always be people who sort of fit outside the major trend of what sort of works for them in terms of formal technique, formal training. 90% might go X route, but 10% will just work well with Y route. And I've seen it when I've been coaching people and training people and teaching people. You get the odd person that it just works differently for. Had it in rifles, had it in archery, and archery is probably even more complicated than that. But when you look at go to like a PRS shoot or something like that, and you see the different ways people take on different obstacles, what they've found, or they think, I think this is going to work for me, I'll try it. Or, I've had a barricade or an obstacle or a resting position like this before. This specific thing worked for me. Do you put your elbow on your right knee, your left knee? What works for you? And the way to do it, go out, shoot, try it. And that is why the 2.2 trainer rifles are such a fantastic idea. Because if you're stable with that rifle of that weight, then okay, recoil is going to be a bit different. But why would you not be stable in a similar circumstance with a larger cartridge, with more recoil, with a similar rifle of similar weight? That's why there's a bit of an impetus to make rifles like the Bergara B14 Rimfire to kind of match the B14 HMR centerfire. Ergonomically speaking, which is the biggest factor of making that good shot, that's the aim of it. So try it. Just enjoy shooting while you can. Right. Okay, fitting video. Another reason, quick one on YouTube, I don't like to do anything too mechanical now, because if you get too mechanical and show too many things about taking things apart and putting things back together, I disassembled a Blaser rifle. YouTube, binned the video because it was gun assembly, gun manufacture, and that's why I don't do too much taking things apart. Because although you don't make a huge amount of money for YouTube videos, the unmonetized ones are a bit of an insult to the time and effort you put in by YouTube. Right, I'm just trying to get back through these questions here. Couldn't fit in video. Stephen Simpson. I'm looking for a lightweight 243. I'm 5'7", light build. Do you have any recommendations? Yeah, I do. Let's just be blatantly honest about this. Sauer makes specific rifles. I believe it's the Artemis, which is designed for the... Please don't anybody just be offended by this. Someone's asked who wants a smaller rifle. Well, they fundamentally designed rifles for the female form, fundamentally smaller, slightly different stock ergonomics and geometry, smaller grip, smaller reach to trigger, things like that. There's nothing shameful about anything, so please, try these other things, because that's a specific factor about the Sauer rifle, which Sauer's German rifles tend to be on the bigger side. You compare that now directly against a Savage or something like that. 110 Apex I had the other week, 223. It's a very handy rifle, great rifle to have in the truck, drive around with, and because it's a little bit shorter, a little bit more compact, for someone of average size, it's a little bit lighter, more compact to handle in confined spaces, like the cab of a vehicle, for example. But in the wide expanse of deer stalking or whatever, that person might only want a 13¼ inch stock for making, prone shots where they've got as much space as they like. So have a look. Stocks are becoming more and more adjustable. The polymer ones have often got spacers. I would say seriously, don't buy a gun where you can't remove the recoil pad and either add spacers or remove spacers. If worst case scenario, you can actually have the stock shortened. Especially if it's a timber one, you can't really shorten polymer ones because usually they've got a moulded end, and if you remove that, you're into a hollow cavity. But it's another factor to think of. So the grips as well. Some of the Rugers have got, some of the Ruger Americans are quite good for smaller hands, and they've usually got adjustable length and pull-on space system as well. And yeah, I think if I was being, I'd look more towards the American rifles, because they do seem to suit smaller people, small shooters, people wanting a smaller rifle, because, and I think this is the second reason, they have a lot more junior and youth shooters. It's not as restrictive as it is here. So if your 14-year-old lad wants to shoot a 223, well, say he's 5'7" or 5'6", 5'7", something like that. Well, that's the rifle he's going to want, and his dad's going to want him to buy him a great rifle at Walmart, whatever. And that's what they're designed to do. So, yeah, maybe look to the US, because I think they do make slightly smaller guns. Tickers have got quite short stocks that use spacers and recoil pads. The T1X Rimfire specifically comes with a flat plastic recoil pad. I don't like the flat plastic ones because they're too slippery. You can't stand the gun up or anything like that. But because you can just add the bigger recoil pads and you've got the length of pull you need. So that works really well. And of course, being an injection moulded stock, it needs to be moulded short so it can have the length extended on it. So yeah, there we go. Oh, right. How about it? Well, right. But Rob Newton. Hi, Chris. I'm looking to buy a scope for 17 HMR for long-range rabbiting. Maybe a Hawk Sidewinder 41650. Would you recommend first focal plane or second focal plane? I think in that situation, I do like first focal plane. But an interesting point brought up actually talking about the PAR 007. That's actually a Hawk Sidewinder 30. It's a new scope, came out last year. They were a little bit delayed in launch. Do you know what? It's a really nice scope because the Sidewinders of old tended to look a bit bulky and clunky and have big saddles in the centre and they were a bit dated looking. Again, can't touch that. YouTube will take the video off. That is a great scope, the Sidewinder 30, because it's got all the mechanical adjustments and things you need, and it's first focal plane as well. They do other options. That is, I think that's the 8 to 24, something like that. I can't see without touching it. And yeah, it's a really nice scope to use because it does all the things that the expensive scopes do at a much more economical cost. It's got nice turrets, nice adjustability, blah blah blah, and that is the first focal plane. And you know what? That's on my air rifle. I really like using that scope, and it's actually made me shoot air rifle more just because the scope is an identical copy almost of the ones on my big rifles, which I tend to go with first focal plane. Just because you cannot make mistakes with reticles on first focal plane. The caveat to that, which on that PAR 007 is, of course, that is there are two lens sizes. I can't remember. Is it a 17 and 20 or a 12 and 17 or something like that? Slightly different magnification levels. That's the larger lens, and that's a minimum 6 power scope. It's actually a little bit too much. Well, 6 is fine as a base level. It's fine, but you don't want to zoom it up more. But of course, to make the reticle a little bit bigger, you do need to zoom it up more. And of course, to compensate for a first focal plane system where you've got small to large reticle, the reticles can be very small at low magnification. You need to click on the illumination, see a little centre dot, and then they grow the big magnification, they're more visible. So you've kind of, when you go to a digital add-on like that for night vision, you've kind of got to change the magnification to get the reticle to the size you want that makes it the most visible, and by which time the magnification's got a little bit high. So if you are thinking of adding a PAR 007, I think that would be one of the situations I would specifically look for a second focal plane reticle, which is fixed in size, because it allows you to choose the reticle you like, and you'll know it's always going to look like that regardless of magnification. So, there's nothing wrong with any of it. I'm just trying to point out some of the things that might not be as obvious as to people who haven't had the opportunity to try pretty much everything. Right, have a little looky here. Chris Story, I answered you earlier, but yeah, the Tikka T1X, it is a very nice rifle. I'm a big CZ457 fan. I actually bought one, and I've got a 17 HMR barrel for that as well, so I've got switch barrel capability there. A lot of people don't know that the CZ457, like the 455 before it, has got switch barrel capability. And you know what? Sportsman Gun Centre, they keep all the stuff in stock for all the alternate calibers. It's about a 5-minute job to swap. So don't discount that because the T1 you fix caliber. I don't think it's super common to change calibers for rimfire users. And I have to say, the T1X is a nice rifle. It was my favourite until I got into the 457, which is probably my favourite now. I just think it triggers a little bit nicer, the bolt's a little bit nicer. I prefer the firing pin arrangement. I like the 10-round mag on the Tikka, which is flush fit in the 2.2, but there's pros and cons to everything. Right, scanning back here. Right, thermal imager. Yeah, no more thermal imager stuff now because I'm bored of it. If you had to pick money, what rifle would you? Merkel. I think I've scrolled back a little bit far here. Right. Oh, I've got HIC 35 and I've taken the rubber cap off and put on a flip-up scope cap. It works great. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Probably a good idea if it suits you. I know you're busy. You're going to do a revival with Mazda M18 rifle. Right, the M18, this is to Edward Sheridan. The M18, are we talking the M18 long range, the chassis rifle in the MDT Oryx stock it is. If it's that one you're talking about, there is going to be a significant video made on that at some point in the next few weeks, but I've done the basic test routines on it, the written magazine articles done. What I need to do is get myself to a facility where I can stretch it out, because it shoots crazy well, to be fair. I was quite surprised by it. I want to do some hand loading as well, because I felt the rounds I was losing, I wasn't losing from the rifle, I was using from factory ammo. And on a rare occasion, I do sometimes want to hand load. It's a 6.5 Creedmoor, and yeah, I want to do a video. I want to shoot it long distance, but I've just got to wait until I can get somewhere, because getting to Scotland, tricky. Getting to Wales, tricky. Okay, we've got all these dates. And by the way, have I mentioned that my birthday is June the 21st? Things will open up gradually before then, because it's my job, so I can shoot in different places. But it's just a case of making it fit with other people that I need to be doing with it. I can't take somebody with me. I can't take cameramen with me. I've got to meet people there. They've got to be working as well. Otherwise, it's not legit. So it's just one of those things. I do want to shoot it more, but it's got to wait until the time is right. I've been shooting one for 3 years in 243, and it is, to be quite honest, one of my favourite bolt-action rifles, and they're not expensive at all. Right, let me just have a look here. How does the rubber eye cup on a thermal influence the image from the display of the unit when it's at the back of a scope, well behind the sensor? I think we've been through that, John Brim. It's generally because you get condensation on it, you don't notice you've done, because it's generally being used in the dark and you don't notice it. Right, oh dear, with this scrolling thing here, right. I've got MG42 style tonight, haven't I? Hi Chris, looking by scope center, I've done that. Right, what's the first impressions of the Zeiss V4? Any quality concerns with glass or build quality since the not main journal like the previous Conquest? Shot it today actually. Shot with it today, didn't shoot it. I've done so much thermal and night vision, really. It was really nice to use the day scope, and it's a pretty good quality image actually. I think I used V4s or V6s on a media trip a couple, 3 years ago, and they were all the highest magnification ones. This time I just put my question into to Sportsman and said, and they said, which one do you want? I said, well, do you know what? I'm just going to have a 4-16 by 50 because I think that's a very appropriate, magnification range for a sporting rifle. I put it on the CZ557, and I really enjoyed using it today. Me being Mr. January 2015 or 2016, I just said, I am going metric. Boom. I was doing quite a lot of work for Swedish magazine, and it was just easier just to do everything metric and convert from that. So from that moment on, I became a metric guy. And to be fair, I've used mostly metric scopes ever since. This is the first time I've gone back to MOA for some more serious shooting, and it's just a different thing again. I'm not saying one's better than the other, it's just what you're used to. But yeah, the V4 is nice, and 4-16 by 50 is a fantastic specification. I just think it's so versatile, and I've actually owned quite a lot of 4-16 scopes. I mean, my first Schmidt and Bender was a 4-16. I've had 2 or 3 more like that. Just a great middle of the road sporting rifle capability. At 4 power, you can get a bit of movement going on, and at 16 power, you can get the precision in. And because that's a second focal plane scope. It's an MOA reticle and MOA turrets. Being second focal plane, it has to be at a specific magnification. I can't tell you what it is off the top of my head, and it's not in here now. But there's actually a very clear indication on the magnification collar. You go clunk. I think it's either 8 or 10 power. You put it on, and the reticle is in MOA. So if you're a completely MOA minded person, it's fantastic. And I have to say, I zeroed it at 100 meters because I'm a 100 meters metric person, but I just call it 100 yards. Just had a bit of a walk around the farm and shot some of the steel I've got out there, and I made some guesstimate shots and some guesstimate, Kentucky windage, and I think it's called Arkansas elevation. And I just simulated a bit of a hunting go with it. And you know what? I could dial, I could aim off, and I had a nice time shooting it. The 5.57 was a nice rifle to shoot actually, and I'm not ordinarily someone who puts loads of rounds through 308s, because 308's a funny cartridge. It can be quite snappy and quick, and I actually prefer 3006, which you'd think would be more, but sometimes it doesn't feel it. But I have to say, the 557 was a very, very steady rifle to shoot. I quite liked it. It was a little bit different to what a lot of the other ones out there. Right. So yeah, the Zeiss was very nice. I did like it. I think it's not too bad for value for money. I think it's about £1,050, ish. Right. What's the first impression on that? Thinking of a new rifle, S20 or 85 and 243. Take your pick. Take your pick, really. The 80, they're very, very different in the detail. The 85 is a semi-control feed bolt with a dual stack magazine. The S20 is a push feed bolt with a single stack magazine. So the former you can load through the ejection port. The latter you've got to take the mag out. Trigger's the same. Bolt operation's similar. Stock geometry similar. Seikos are pretty good stock geometry certainly for me. For I don't know. I'm average-ish size at 5'11". Don't know. They're both going to handle quite similarly. I think my big critique of the S20 is I don't think it's quite as modular as they make it sound, and it's a switch stock gun, it's not a switch caliber or anything like that. I think as a standalone rifle, I would go for the S20. I was never a huge fan of the semi-controlled feed bolt on the 85. My first centerfire was actually a 75, and that was a very, very good rifle. But again, that was a straight push feed off a twin column magazine. Personally, I think that was the best way to do it on the 75. The 85s work well. They all shoot well. They're all quality rifles and very well made. But it comes down to little tiny differences. And of course, moving on to the S20 with the internal aluminium chassis and the polymer shells on the side of it, it's got it's a nicely modern design style. And yeah, if you look at it just as that rifle, it's a nice rifle, but it's not like a Blaser where you can look at it as every rifle modularity you might ever develop into. And to be fair, I think it's priced for what it is as a single rifle. I don't think it's crazy expensive actually. So yeah, I'd probably go S20. I did have a few feed issues on mine, but mine may have just been a one-off. Oh dear, right. Dave Land's here. Hello, Monkey Arms, Dave. What's the first impressions? Nice. We've all done that. How does the rubber eye cup? Done that. KY Jelly, protector from your girth with the greatest lube on earth. KY Jelly. Well, there we go. That's what YouTube does to you. It brings that into your life. Right, John Brim, the Seiko S20 is great when you want a normal long day scope. Okay, yeah. One thing about the S20 is that they call it a Picatinny rail, but it's not. It's two individual Picatinny or Weaver bases. I didn't measure them, but they are individual, so you haven't got continuous rail throughout. It's not an issue for tubed rifle scopes, but some night vision, some thermal won't fit it quite so easily, or at all. Which I think is what John Brim is referring to. It is what he's referring to. Right, hi Chris. I've been waiting to get Sightmark Wraith 4K Max. The reviews look good. What's your thoughts on this? And they still aren't available. Should I get something else or wait? Not going to answer that. I'm sorry. I don't know. I kind of got messed about on this one myself because I made a video on it and then there was none available. There were none available for sale, so I had to hold the video and I lost out a lot of time and effort on it. So yeah, it was a good scope, but availability is key. Is it worth £400 more than the Wraith HD? I don't really think so. I mean, if you want the microphone and want some of the, the sort of I can do this, I can do that tagline's great, but I don't like the illuminator on the left side, and compared to the HD with the illuminator on top, I think they made a really backward step with that, so I'd stay with the HD. 617 again, right. Hang on, we've got Stephen Simpson. Ticker range ain't bad in 243 for a lightweight rifle for short action people. Yeah, ticker T3s are just, they're so popular for such a good reason. They just work. I actually, don't tell anybody, but I actually prefer the T3 to the Seikos. There's no accuracy difference. I just like the simplicity of them, and I just think they're a little bit handier. And I like, they've done a really good thing because they've got a 2-lug bolt, but it's a 70-degree lift, and that that difference between 70 and 90 doesn't sound a huge amount, but it just makes the handling a little bit better on the action, because you drop to a 60-degree on the 3-lug, but price goes up. Is it doing anything more for you? To be honest, no, it's not. I've had just as many tickers that shoot well as Seikos that shoot well. I will say one of the best test guns I have ever had was a Seiko 85. I think it was a Black Wolf 270, and 270 is a hell of a cartridge to shoot sometimes. That thing was just a tack driver, straight up Federal factory ammo, boom, 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 and it just one hold. It was nuts, that gun. But I think that's just just one of those things. Some's good, some's not so good. Right, sight mark ray, ticker T1X all the way. Steve Simpson, ticker range 8x243. If you could start, right, if you could start over again with shooting, what would you do differently? I wouldn't become disabled, and I wouldn't stop doing archery. There you go, 617. Chris Lewis, 17 HMR for long range accuracy. Does barrel length matter? Do you know what? You say that. I did quite some serious videos with that CZ457 long range precision, which has got the stock and the action and everything to shoot rimfire at long range, about as well as you can do. And I swapped the barrel on it for a 17 HMR barrel, which I happen to have off a donor gun someone had given me. That shot well. They both shot really well at 100 metres for 150 metres for pest control reasons. But I have to say, at 300 metres, there is no way I'll be using the 17 HMR 22 rimfire for me, because not only do the 17s get blown all over the place, you don't see where they land or splash in the earth, so you can't. Yeah, 2-2. Maybe if it's not windy, yeah, the 17 HMR. But seriously, when the wind picks up, wow, it just. I haven't actually quantified the exact mathematical ballistics of it, but I know which one I will be shooting. There we go. Right, 17 HMR, barrel length. I don't think you need to go to more than a 16 or an 18. 16s and 17 HMR have never really left me thinking I needed more. Right, do you think 1 in 8 twist rate in a 223 rem is overplayed, and have you tried lighter bullets? 45, 50, twist rate. My 223 Wild is a 1 in 8, and I can shoot 55s, 53s, no problem at all. I don't think I've shot any 40 grain factory ammo actually, just because I tend to get 53 and 55 predominantly from Hornady. I'll have to get some. I'll ask for some and see what it's like. I've shot. I don't think you'll have a huge problem with it. Back in the day, my 22-250 was rebarreled as a 22 BR, and I had a 1 in 8 barrel put on that for heavy bullets, but I still shot 40 grain bullets through that at stinking velocity, and they were fine. It was notable they were quite expansive when they did. The terminal ballistics were significantly more expansive than they were from a 12 twist. But they were going very fast as well, and as many as the rules that you can put about what bullet will work in what twist rate, there's always going to be oddities and exceptions. And I don't think I'd be surprised to find 40s will work fine in an 18-inch twist 223. I don't necessarily think I'd want to chance it on a faster barrel, but 22-250 factory cartridge. I think they're generally a 14-inch twist. They'll shoot 40 grain bullets at super speed, generally all right. So that's what they're designed for. That's why they're a slower 14-inch twist, because there's more bullet speed. Right, Anthony Murray retracted his message, but he's put it here again. Cheers, Chris. Are you doing a review on the Zeiss V4? If so, where will it be? It will be going in the last edition of Sporting Rifle. I am told Sporting Rifle is soon to amalgamate with the Shooting Times, so we shall see. But yes, there'll be a written review in there. You'll see some of it on the written review in Rifle Shooter, or I think we'll be running the review on the CZ557. It's going to be featured on top of that. Whether it'll get an independent review in there, I'm not sure. As for video, again, I might do a little brief video on it because I quite like it. It's a good scope, and although it's nothing fundamentally different to everything else out there, there are a couple of little features with it that do give it a slight edge. It will wind down to 10 meters parallax and focus. So rimfires and air guns especially, that is a pretty good scope, you know, that will work on an air gun. And it's all very well saying, you know, this, that and the other scope, blah, blah, blah. You get a lot of scopes to a 32 power and they'll go short range for air guns. They are not of the image quality that Zeiss is. So, on the other hand, you'll get a lot of good image quality scopes that won't go below 50 meters. Well, that Zeiss Z4 will. And it is, yeah, I think that's a bit of a unique selling point. It's not a unique selling point, but it's an unusual selling point. So it's worth looking at for that reason alone. Right, okay, Stephen Orr, hi Chris, now you've probably been asked this before, but what do you make of the new lead-free ammo? That is so overdone, so boring, and I am not answering. I've used it, it works, I'm not getting involved in the politics of it all, because it's just boring. The price will be more. The terminal effects are slightly different. Things will still work. We'll all have to adapt and change if it becomes the law. That is just the fact. I can't change it. I can't control it. I can't dictate to everybody. But it does work. It just needs slightly different handling characteristics. Yeah, right. I'm looking to buy, this is Rob Newton, looking to buy a 17 HMR, CZ457 or Ticker T1. Which would you recommend? What's it for? Is it for hunting? Go with either of them. Is it for target? I'd probably err towards the CZ more. Chances, you know, the choice is yours. Personally, I'd go CZ. I liked the T1X right up until the 457 came out, and then, you know, as time goes by, there's little things you like more. There's some little things about the 457 I just think are so fantastically rimfire, and they're just, everybody knows CZ for rimfires, and okay, we've all held Brunos and the CZ 452s, and they thought a little bit agricultural, but everybody's shot one and they're just reliable. Well, do you know what? That was completely dropped with the 457. The 455 maintains some of the slightly older school factors in terms of triggers and the firing pin. But the 457, wow, that's just gone straight into the 21st century. You've got a hard face firing pin that hits the back of the breech without the chisel tip being, you know, the stopping device. You've got better triggers, better bolt handles. They handle really well. I actually want to have a go, and I'm going to get a 2.2 rimfire version with the synthetic stock, because I've got the similar synthetic stock at the minute on the 557 centerfire. I have done the 457 in the Royal walnut stock, which, to be fair, I didn't love because it was a little bit sort of like really new action with slightly sort of old-fashioned timber. It worked very well, but I just didn't personally do it. 457 long-range precision, very modern in every respect. I think it looks really good actually too. Not that that particularly matters to me, but it looks good because it works well and it's ergonomically very good. So yeah, to get the 2.2 with the synthetic stock, I'm looking forward to that actually, because I think that's going to be a great rifle for pest control and for plinking. You know, practicing, learn to shoot, practice shooting with your 2.2 rimfire. That's what it's fantastic for. Right. Right. Tagging on to at Rob Newton 455 because they are cheaper. Do you know what? I wouldn't buy a 455. Buy a 457. It's fundamentally different. It takes the same barrel, reinforce and tenon, so they're all interchangeable. But it's the action. It's just that little bit different, a little bit newer, and it just makes a big difference. If you're only going to hunt with it and you want something that will just, you know, bump and bang around everywhere and you want to save a bit of money, go 455. But yeah, I like the 457. I would say, I've said it sometimes, I actually bought it. I thought it reassured my opinion that there are gun manufacturers out there who really catch the leading edge of a wave and do it right, because there's plenty of them that just do it wrong. David and Jade, right, picking up Mauser M18 synthetic in the threaded 6.5 Creedmoor tomorrow. Since state rifle client use, it seems fairly hardy and able to choose take a beauty and made right. Yeah, I really like the M18. The 243 one I've got is basic. Just to clarify here, I've got the M18 in 6.5 Creedmoor long range chassis rifle at the moment, which is the brand new thing. I don't think there's many of those around. And I've had the 243 M18 sporting rifle, synthetic stock, for 3 years now. And it has been one of my most used rifles for scope testing, night vision testing, foxing, and general, a little bit of row stalking, just a little bit, but I tend to use my Swede if I'm going stalking, because I pick the rifle generally on what scope's on it, and the Swede's always got a daylight on it, and the 243 is about 75% of the time it's had a night vision or a thermal on it. So I just don't think you'll go wrong with an M18. That's the best I can say about it, because it's, for anybody who's followed me for 10 years writing, and for, I don't know, I have actually had a YouTube channel for a long time, but I only really started putting serious effort into it about 12 months ago. For anybody who's followed the number of guns I have shot, used and reviewed, I couldn't tell you. It must be in the hundreds. And that's just the ones that have been in my register. They're not the ones I've encountered or experienced on trips, on travel, in the States, in Europe. Hunt this, go to Italy for that, Mauser here, Merkel there, CZ this, and there's hundreds. So I get a very broad sort of playing field to try them out on. And I just think the M18s are really undersold, under-advertised, underloved gun. I mean, I love the M12, but the M18s, it's okay. It's a slightly simpler, slightly cheaper version of it with some fundamental differences, but it handles just as well. And I do think the M18 243 with the medium length bolt handle and the little spherical bolt knob, that is the fastest bolt gun there is. In my hands, in terms of the stroke length, the feed rate on the magazine, twin column magazine, again you can top load it, and that bolt handle and the inability to jam that bolt, because I don't like super long bolt handles, because I think on a fixed length bolt shaft, the longer you make the handle, the more leverage you're putting on that fixed length bolt shaft, and the silly long bolt shafts tend to jam bolts, so you certainly don't get that slick close down. But yeah, you won't be disappointed with an M18 at all. If you are, it'll be a warranty issue that someone will sort for you, because I just can't think of any reason not to like them. And I don't care if it gets dropped or bumped or banged. And I'll tell you another thing about it. Because it's been used for a lot of foxing, that rifle has been brought back very cold at night a lot of times. Bring it in the house, what happens? It's like there's a waterfall on it because the condensation's that fast. That gun, I'm not careless with guns, but I tend to treat them a little bit mean, so I can tell you how mean they'll take it. And do you know what? There's not a single dot. There's not an orange spot on it. And I've had plenty of guns that have never had anything more than daylight use, and they get red rust spots on them, orange rust spots on it. And a lot of the time you'll see those on the bolt handles, because the oil's off your skin. And sweat and whatever. Some people are more salty than others, but that is quite corrosive. But there's plenty of guns that you virtually breathe near them and they start going rusty. So the Mauser hasn't done that. The Mauser has not done that. Plenty of guns don't do it, but yeah, the Mauser's not an expensive gun. Right. Oh God, I think we've lost. I've scrolled a bit too quickly here. Stephen Lewis, currently shoot Horny VMAX 55 go rounds in my TKT3 12 twist, right, ping 12. A 12 twist in a 223 should be good for about 60 grains. You might get 69s, but I think you're probably getting out the envelope there. 55s are great though. And if you really want it, big difference, right? If you get an 8-inch twist and you shoot, say, like 69s versus 55s, you will really learn quickly about the windage difference between a 69 grain bullet and a 55 grain bullet, and you'll start to give much less of a care about elevation correct and much more pay attention to the wind, because it's stunning the difference it does, especially if you move to 75s or 77s. Yeah, it's quite illustrative. Is that the correct word? Right, Dave Robinson. Hi Chris, what are your thoughts on a 22-250 versus 204 for varminting up to 400 yards? Well, yeah, go back and watch the start of this video actually, Dave. I mentioned the 204. I have never actually done a full gun review on a 204. The only time I've shot one was when I went to the Hornady and Savage factories in America. Fundamentally, they're very good. They're great. You've got, fantastic ballistics, a bit less noise, a bit less recoil. I mean, 22-250 is not exactly a thumper, but you do get, recoil with them all. I don't know. It depends on the twist rate on the barrel on the 22-250. I mean, if you were to go for an 8-inch twist and shoot 75s through a 22-250, that is an absolute barnstorming option. But on a standard 14 or maybe a 12 twist on a 22-250, you're probably limited to 55 grain bullets, whereas if you shoot the 40s in a 204, you might find it a little bit better. And again, it's got plenty of terminal ballistics. Either of them got plenty of terminal ballistics when they get there. It's just about how they get there and how much noise you want to make, because the 22-250 is a bit noisier. I mean, I notice a lot 243 more so, but not. I would say 243 is a bit more than a 22-250, and this is all like for like gun, like for like moderator, whatever. But 22-250 is louder than a 223. So the 204 with a smaller powder volume, it's 22 Magnum. It's based on a 22. Was it 22 Magnum? It was called a 223 Magnum, or no, it was called a 222 Magnum, wasn't it? Yeah, it might be a little bit quieter. To be honest, I'd love to review one, but I've never been able to get my hands on one because they seem to be a little bit like rocking horse droppings. But I must admit, do you know what? Get a 204, lend it to me, and I'll have a go with it. There we go. Right, Sharp 177. Quick question: do you think 300 Win Mag is overkill for deer? I want to use it abroad as well. No, I've shot quite a few deer with 300 Win Mag. I've got one. I've shot everything from roe up to stag. I've shot my first stag, which I'm looking at now with them. Do you know what? It's a big boomer. It's got plenty of horsepower, but don't bother buying one if you're only going to shoot 150 grain bullets out of it. You want to be looking at 180s or more, because there's no point having all that big bang for a bullet with diminished sectional density over what it's designed for, and it's really best with 180s and above. So if you're a bit recoil intolerant, I wouldn't go towards it. Personally, if I was buying a rifle tomorrow for what I've used and will use my 300 Win Mag for, I'd probably buy a 3006, because there's a reason that's so old. It's a beautiful cartridge. I've never really had problems with 300 Win Mag, to be honest. There's all sorts of haters who say it's got a short neck and this, that and the other. You can, if you reload for them, you do need to just be a little bit careful of case head separation, because it's a belted Magnum cartridge, so head space is on the belt, not the shoulder. And if you are reloading, you'll get case growth in the chamber each firing, and they don't want full length resizing. They only want the shoulders bumping, because otherwise you will get case head separation, because they are a slacker fit to the shoulder than a shoulder head spacing cartridge. But that's a small detail. It's nothing to worry about. It's just something to think about if you do start reloading for 300 Win Mag. I'm going to have a little drink. Excuse me for one moment. Normally I tell you these things are going to go on for an hour, but basically we're going to go on tonight for as long as you keep asking questions. And as long as my bladder will hold. So no, I don't think it's overkill, but it's probably more than you need in most scenarios in the UK. I've never had the issue, but they do say some of the big woodland stags, they're big beasts. But it's, I've shot a roebuck and a stag the same day with a 300 Win Mag, and do you know what? And because, I bet you blew the roebuck to pieces, and do you know what? No, I didn't, because I was using a 180 grain bullet, slow expanding, controlled expansion, high sectional density, not loads of muzzle velocity, about 2,850 feet per second. And you know what? Other than leave a sort of a nice circular bullseye type target ripple in its damp fur, there was no bruising, no issues like that. And it was just quite funny that you got these perfect concentric circles in the fur where the impact energy and the kind of wave had gone brrr out from the wound. But there was no bruising, no damage to the carcass. So yeah, I like it, but do you need it? It's up to you. It's up to you. Right, I've scrolled back here, I've got to get through my questions. I do promise if I do one of these again on YouTube, which seems to be working quite well with a lot of new names and faces, I will work on making sure I can see my questions more easily. Andrew Harris, just putting for 223, what do you recommend budget of £2,000 being looking at Hauer? Yeah, my best mate's got a Hauer 223. It does great stuff. It shoots well, it's reliable, it's consistent. Doesn't matter if he bumps it, bangs it around, it holds up to it all. And you know, if you're going to spend 2,000 quid and you buy a Hauer, that's going to get you a very nice scope as well. So I think that's probably going to balance out quite well. If you were saying 2,000 on a rifle alone, I'd sort of be moving into maybe wanting a ticker or a sour or something like that. But you add a scope to that, and you're well over 2,000 quid at that point. So I think the Hauer's not a bad idea with a nice scope, to be quite honest. Yeah, go with it. That's certainly the way Dave's gone with his, because he's got good scope on it, he shoots it well, and it does what it needs to do. So yeah. Right, max range you would use or recommend a 22 WMR 22 Magnum for Fox. Oh, Chris M. I have never had a 22 Magnum I would even want to put one in a trap with. I just don't like it. I just don't get it. I think they'll, if they shoot well, the ones I've had just never seem to have shot particularly well, whether it was the ammos or the rifles or whatever. They were okay, but I didn't see any kind of joy in using one. I think I would have rather used a 2.2 Rimfire and enjoyed the silence. But I don't know. I mean, I think rule of thumb on those is sort of 100, 125 metres. I mean, add a little bit more of that, put 10% more on if you're talking yards. I certainly don't think it's something you want to be knocking away at huge range at, and because it all depends on bullet placement. So, if it's an accurate gun, good scope, you can shoot it well, you'll probably do very well with it. But I've always wanted to try a 22 Hornet. I've only used one very briefly when I was hunting with a friend years ago, and it's one I'd like to use. Graham Allen is the one to ask about 22 Hornet, if he's here tonight. Right, Steve Lewis, I have CZ457 for 17 I've just swapped the standard wooden stock for CZ. I prefer the pistol grip, and now I'm not worried about knocking it around. Good stuff. Right, CZ457 long range precision tomorrow. Thanks for your videos. Not a problem at all. That guy, I think he's called Mr. 77. Right, Simon Brown, got rid of an 85 in 223 and bought a T3 in 204. No regrets. Yeah, if that worked for you, good stuff. I mean, if someone said, Chris, you're going to do a review on a T3 and 204 Ruger, I'd be like, cool, I'm looking forward to that already. Yeah, they're both nice guns. Right, 666 gun, 100. I've got 457 22 synthetic stock 20-inch barrel. Love it. Do you know what? I've got one as well. I love it too. Ian Owell, good evening. Late to the party. Don't worry, Ian. We're probably going to go on a while longer tonight. And Rob Newton, hi Chris. What sound mod would you recommend for the CZ457 17HMR? I suppose what your gun shop stocks, you're not going to get huge amounts of things to it. I think I've used SAC moderators on loads of rimfires of both 22 Magnum and 17HMR, purely because I've got a couple of them. They'll screw on pretty much every rifle with a 1/2-inch thread, and use them loads. I did actually have, I'm trying to think what the rifle was. I was sent a rifle, I don't know, a year, 15, 18 months ago. It's probably more than that now, because we can pretty much blip the last year out for any kind of memory. And it was a UNEF thread 1/2-inch, and DPT sent me a moderator for that one. I don't remember what rifle it was, but it was a 17HMR. And I have to say that DPT was noticeably quieter on a 17HMR than the SAC. But the SAC is a £30 moderator. They last forever, they're hard as nails, but they're maybe not as super efficient as the DPT was, which was significantly more expensive. I think the SAC's about 30, DPT was over 100 or maybe 80, 90, I don't remember. What the rifle was, I cannot think for the life of me. I've got a funny feeling it might have been a Savage or something like that with the EF thread. But yes, I think if I was doing a lot of 17 HMR shooting and I was looking at a moderator specifically for it, that DPT was quite a good choice because it was noticeably quieter. Right, questions. Someone said a Wildcat Panther. That's probably not a bad one either, yeah. I've done quite a lot with Wildcats recently on centerfires, and they've all done a good job. And the evolutions strip down easily, and I can swap the threaded section for different rifle as well. Right, Wildcat Panther. Any recommendations on a good silencer? We've just done that one. Wildcat Panther. Housekin MD45 for 17 HMR. Yeah, Housekin makes some good moderators. It won't be, you're going up in price a little bit, or quite a lot, but Housekin are good moderators. Stephen Orr, what's the most accurate rifle you've ever shot, Chris? I do know the answer to this one, but what do you term accuracy? Are we talking factory rifle, factory ammunition, and just one group? And I thought, wow. And never tried it before, never tried it again. And there was an element of, it happened to be 3 rounds that just did do silly stuff. But it's not a benchrest rifle for a benchrest match when you call it like that, is it? Dave Land did that with that 85 Black Wolf in 270. I've done it with a Blaser R8, the absolute standard Blaser R8 in 6555, and I do think my group was probably better than Dave's, or this was on a different occasion. And I was actually out one day with Chris from Swillington Shooting Supplies, and he was with a client, and he was steering a rifle for a client, and we were just having a go with it. He says, do you want to have a go with this rifle? And we were literally using the top of his truck and standing on the tailgate for a good rest position across slightly longer crop. We had a big backstop, and everything was cool for that. I thought, well, I'll have a go with it. And it was only because Chris saw actual 3 puffs of the bullet hitting and the muck behind it that I realised that the one hole in the target really was one hole. And it was like, shit's all right, that, doesn't it? So, and that was just and that was the absolute base level R8. I think it had a Zeiss scope on it, 3 to 12 or something like that. Federal ammo. It was just nothing that was everybody was going to go, oh, this is a bench rifle. But on that occasion, I just thought, do you know what? That shot really well. And to be fair, of all the Blasers, I actually like the entry level simplest one the most. That's just me though. But I've got to say, that wasn't a published group or any kind of thing like that. But the Black Wolf that Dave was shooting, and this is maybe 3 years ago now. He was actually on the front cover of the magazine using it. That was a printed group, and it was pretty stunning. But in terms of longer, sort of slightly longer distance stuff, that was all at 100 meters. In terms of longer distance stuff, and of course also larger ammunition quantity to give you a more average value. Ironically, a couple of weeks ago, I shot 2 6.5 Creedmoors on the same day. It was very cold, but it was absolutely breathless, and I got to 200 meters with them both. And they were both using factory ammo. I had 3 or 4 different types of Hornady factory ammo. I had some 140, 147 ELD match, and then I also had a 147 ELD TAP FPD, it's called. I shot groups with all of them, and do you know what? Both those rifles were they averaged about 0.6 MOA at 200 yards. Well, no, I'm a bit mixed units here because I was shooting at 200 meters, but I printed the statistics and calculated it all in yards in imperial MOA, and they both held about 0.6 MOA for 25 rounds, which was pretty impressive, to be honest. The conditions couldn't have been better. The shooting position couldn't have been better. I was on a solid bench, and I had no sun in my eyes. Everything. It was one of those days where everything just goes right. But it was nice that those coincided with 2 rifles that shot extremely well. One was the Mauser M18 long range in the Oryx stock, and the other one was a Hauer 6.5 Creedmoor in the other which was the MDT ACC stock. Both chassis rifles, slightly different chassis from the same company. It was one of the most interesting review days I've ever had, actually, and I'd like to have done a comparison or a compare and contrast video, because everybody thinks, oh, chassis rifle, this is for this and this is for that. Well, one chassis really suited, the Mauser seemed to suit, you know, more sort of prone position shooting and the long range stuff that they advertise it for, whereas the ACC, which Ryan set up for me at Thailand Outdoors, was far more appropriate for kind of his world of the precision rifle stuff, you know, with the vertical pistol grip and the much more multi-positional shift shooting. And it was really nice to see two rifles which on paper seem so similar, especially to a less experienced eye, yet in the real world have got very subtle but lovely varied characteristics of how you do things. And I actually had the choice, because they're both going to be in Rifle Shooter magazine in a few weeks' time, and I had the choice of which one was going to be the minigun at 3 pages and the full gun review at 5 pages. And, well, what can I say? I had to choose. I couldn't put them 4 and 4, they had to be 3 and 5. I put the Mauser at 5 pages, just because I liked it. It just suited my requirements for a rifle, and it did. At the end of the day, the only reason I really did so much shooting was because I just felt that with the opportunity there, I had to mathematically separate the two of them. So on that day, the Mauser won by about, it was like an F1 qualifying time kind of margin of victory. But really nice guns, nice to try them both on the same day. I've forgotten even what the question was now. But yeah, those were high volume, longer test runs. Because I have to remember, I'm a rifle reviewer, I'm not a rifle tester. And there's a difference. Right, let me just try and find where we've got it to. What's the... Have you used an MAE mod? If so, what do you think? I've never really used them, Dave Robinson. Sorry, can't tell you much about it. Right, I'm not sure how to say your name, Mr. Smith, but hi, Chris. Do you do any vermi shooting from the car? If so, what's your setup tips? Do you know what? I don't do a huge amount from the vehicle. On the occasions I have, if I've shot 10 Foxes from a vehicle in 15, 20 years, I'll be surprised. I might have done 6, 5, done something like that. More rabbits I have, yeah. So let's start with the rabbits. Rimfires, smaller rifles, dinkier, more pointable, more manoeuvrable, you know, 16-inch, sometimes 14-inch barrels, much easier. That would be my preference. If we move to foxing and say I'm going to shoot more from inside the vehicle, I would definitely go 223 and I would limit the barrel definitely no more than 20 inches. If you're talking more sort of long range corvid stuff like that, I don't think the 223 would fail to do it. The scope would be the bigger choice than the rifle on that one, because of course you're probably going to switch from night vision on the foxes and rabbits and things to a daylight on the corvids. But yeah, I don't see why a 20-inch 223 wouldn't do it. But as the range increases, as the wind increases, you might want to go to a 22-250 or 243 and more ballistics, more speed. And a gun, and there's no point having all that without a longer barrel, so the gun's a bit less manoeuvrable from inside of a vehicle. Are you left-handed? Are you right-handed? Are you driving? Are you the passenger? And all these things start to add up. And I actually, I was doing it as that I was driving my vehicle, but I actually set it up so I had a board across the passenger seat to the dashboard, to the sort of head restraint board, so I could shoot out the passenger window with a better rest. But of course I had to go that way around the farm, so I was always shooting into the farm. Had I been going the other way around the farm, I would have been having to shoot out the driver's window. I can shoot left-handed with no great bother, but I prefer to shoot right-handed with a rest than shoot left-handed with nothing in cramped space. So it depends how you want to set it up. Right, hang on. What's a good all-round twist rate with all different weight grains? For what cartridge? Andrew Harris, for what cartridge? For which cartridge? What's a good all-rounder twist rate with all different weight grains? Right, Andrew, tell me what cartridge. because there's every bullet diameter's got different preferences. Right, Paul Smith, what are your thoughts on the CZ centerfire rifles? Been talking about that. Quite like them. They're a bit different. Got different handling ergonomics. They are generally, they do seem to be for taller shooters, for bigger hands, this, that, and the other, compared to sort of more US oriented rifle with Scandinavian and German stuff more in the middle. As a general trend as to what I've seen, right. Okay, David and Jane again. Sorry, David and Jade. Chris, I love reading about the dangerous game hunters of old like Jim Corbett. If you had to shoot a charging man-eater, what rifle and caliber would you want with you? Whichever one I was holding. I don't think it's something I'm likely to ever do. If I was going with the intention of knowing I would be doing something like that, I've got some friends with experience of things like that, and I would ask them what they would recommend. It's not my area of expertise at all. I suspect, I mean, I've shot a lot of larger rifles, but not certainly in any kind of hunting or dangerous situation. I suppose you're looking at, 338 Win Mag and bigger, but probably a lot bigger. I mean, I've shot 458 lots. I've shot quite a lot of that, but only because my daughter's birthday was that number. And we used to use them in Denmark on the shoot there. They kick like donkeys. I mean, there were 20 journalists on that trip, and the big goal for selfies was to take a picture of your shoulder. I wasn't so bad, but some of them were absolutely battered after this day. Number one, if you're going to find yourself in a situation like that deliberately, you're going to be wanting to practice for it. Number two, you want to pick a gun that you know you can put the bullet where it matters, not necessarily the biggest one. That's what I think. I've read books on it. I don't pretend to know about it. I find it very interesting. Yeah. What would I go? I think, do you know what? Play it safe. Go with a 375 Holland and Holland, because there's probably a reason it's got a good tagline to it. It's neither the biggest or the smallest. I'd probably go with something like that. Would I go for a bolt or a double rifle? Ooh, now there's a different one. I did have some good success shooting a 470 Nitro Express double rifle Blaser a long time ago. That was quite a nice gun to shoot. Very expensive, and of course, if you ain't done it in two, you ain't going to do it in more. So make sure the first one counts and the second one backs it up. I don't know. It's not something I'm worrying about, to be honest. Chris M. Are there a lot of Chris's tonight? Or is it just that I've noticed them? Many thanks, Chris. What do you think of the Seiko Quad Rimfire rifle series? They're very good. I think I was quite surprised actually. I was at the Seiko factory when they launched the Seiko Ticker factory when the T1 was presented to us all to try. It was still on a non-disclosure agreement to that point, but we tried them and I thought, wow, that's a great gun. I think that's going to be expensive. And do you know what? It was nothing like as expensive as I thought it was going to be. And to me, the Ticker T1 has steamrolled the Seiko personally in every respect. I prefer the bolt, the magazine, I prefer the stock, for everything about it. And although the quad was an interesting concept, I'm not necessarily sure it was particularly popular, because you pretty much had to take the scope off to get the barrel out. And if you didn't do that, you had to have the scope so high that it was ergonomically compromised. So they shoot well. I've had a few, but only ever in single calibers. So yeah, but how many people really need a switch barrel rimfire? Because they're not hugely expensive, and if it's a tool to do a job, £200 each, is it worth spending £600 on when you can swap the barrel when you could have two? Right, because the variations and things like that are no different. You might as well have two guns. Right, let me just try and find the question here. Right, can you recommend a good quality £500-ish scope for hunting and a bit of range work going on a 223? Yeah, one of them. That Hawk Sidewinder 30. I think that's a cracking scope. I think they go between about 400 and 600 on, depending on specification. I can't absolutely remember. And there's all sorts of options. Don't go silly high on magnification, because going silly high on magnification, that's not bad, but a lot of scopes push magnification as some kind of crutch to keep everything else from looking bad, and it just makes it all look worse. And especially if you're stalking, you don't need massive magnification. You're more likely to need speed and field of view than you are huge magnification. Right, so is the Yukon Sightline M450 good for an entry-level beginner's NV scope for rimfires? Don't see why not. I used one, can't remember. 15 months. Every time I'm thinking a year, I'm now going to up that to sort of 15 months. I can picture using one foxing on that Mauser M18. That was before I started using the PBIRLs, and the PBIRL I think would have made my life a lot better with some of those night vision sights a while ago. Don't confuse it on a Digix. Don't use a PBIRL. The Digix is very good, but the PBIRL is too bright for it. There are slower ones. I think it's the S or the C model you want for that. But no, I think that's not a bad choice. But it's the illuminator makes a big difference. Personally, I'd probably still go with a Wraith because I just find them so easy, ergonomically in the control element of them. Right, Bob Baird missed his tea. Well, thanks for turning up, Bob, and have a nice tea. I think we've pretty much wound it all up there. Long range shooting. A good friend of mine took me out for a treat, shooting his Accuracy International in 308. He had me hitting a 9-inch steel at 520 yards. What a buzz! Great day, never forget. Well, there you go then. That was a good buzz, great day, I'll never forget. And Accuracy International do make a good rifle. I'm a big lover of the AT. I prefer it to the AX actually, just because it's a little bit simpler, a little bit smaller, lighter, a bit more portable. But they are good rifles. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. Well, anyway, that's rounded off quite well actually. We've got to 1 hour and 27 minutes. So, I hope you enjoyed the different format. Apologies for the slightly rough start with it not being able to find questions and things, and I think we should also thank you to the lovely Limbo because she brought her phone through, which I've been using to read the questions on. I will try and do that again next time. I have to say we've had a lot more viewers on YouTube than we did on Facebook. The reason I did this on YouTube was because Facebook is always changing its user interface, and I just for some reason I couldn't find what I wanted to do that I'd done several times before. I thought, do you know what? Let's try this on YouTube. And I think it's worked out well in the end. We've got 55 viewers at the moment. So that's more than we've had on Facebook. So we'll do it again. I like the fact I can announce it ahead of the time. I can put various pictures on to thumbnail it and draw attention and maybe show some of the things I've been up to at the time. And it looks like we've still got a few questions popping up now. Boyhead, do you think there's another brand rifle that could beat Howard 1500 for price and quality? Howard shoot very well, and you've got a lot of stock options and barrel options and thing options, and that's one of the things about them. You can build the rifle you want with a Howard, so it's up to you. They certainly seem to perform. Did we get any more questions before I really do round it up? Right, I'm not answering any more question now. Right, Combat Sheep, you can watch back and I'll tell you about the hick. And that's it. I'm not doing any more questions there. Right, thank you all for joining me. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share this video around. And if you want to come along next time, hopefully I'll run it again. I usually run it about every 2 weeks. I will run it on YouTube again because I think I prefer the format. I'll be able to watch it back and I'll see how it worked out. So yeah, safe shooting everybody, enjoy yourselves, and look forward to June the 21st because it's my birthday. So yeah, thanks for watching, bye for now. I say that and you're all still watching, I haven't figured out how to turn it off yet. I'm just going to stand here stabbing at it. There we go. Are you sure you want to go there? Yes.